Yeah, I saw
At
it.
least the county acknowledged we're the ones that did it.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
how?
I mean, I was pleasantly shocked by
Well,
that.
what I understand is how Worthington
Well, they,
is on the
I mean,
receiving end of
what
this.
they don't understand is
They knew nothing
those
about it.
people can't go.
Other than,
And how do you sheet flow across
Oh,
somebody
I know,
else's
yeah,
property?
here's what happens.
But this
South
third
Florida,
part,
they don't notify
those people want
their
to.
fucking modifications ever.
Unless
you ask.
But when they see that the water off-site is not directly connected into a system.
Is
If they
this
say it's
that
historic
new?
flows, that's the.
Yeah, because other people.
So historic flows call for flooding of somebody else's property.
That's where the flows went. You have to pick your.
That just doesn't make sense at all.
I think we should go build a big berm.
Margaret,
I like the pedometer idea.
I'm totally in this.
I think it's excellent. I've already put a draft in my letter, Chris. You know that? Thank you. I'm gonna send an email to you.
I really wish they'd get rid of this red thing
A
though.
call.
I even tried.
Response or something.
If we're gonna do it, I'm gonna be gone. When, Monday morning? This coming Monday? I don't have anything Monday until 2:00. At 1:30, after 1:30, I'm going the rest of the day.
She came in and talked to me about them taking over
Yeah, Monday, yeah, 11 o'clock would work great.
pond banks in here. She said, we want the district to take it over after we fix it. And I said, well, I don't care for the board, I'll direct the board attorney how long it takes to flip it around.
Yeah, I got to,
Just called Chris again over at the STL
And I
office
said,
to
well,
find
you're
out
welcome
where
to
he
come up
was,
and
and she
ask
doesn't
them.
know either, so she's gonna text me
I
to
said,
see what his
tell the
ETA is.
attorney 30 days, he's around like a hospital.
Well, I know, because he travels, so I was
And I
gonna,
said, you're welcome to get up
he's
and
always
say what you want, just like anybody
and, but
else.
he hasn't been over to the ST office.
On 70.
yes, sir.
that happens
You're
anytime.
getting close.
Yeah, I know.
I think the thing is,
So we'll find out, that's why I have my cell, so I can get a text from him.
Okay, those are.
that's where the damage happened.
Exactly.
I said,
Okay.
if you want to address the issue and bring it to head, I go, I need to tell you, make that decision, because I can't as a staff person.
Yeah.
Okay, great, I'd like that.
Yeah, I'm scoring a lot of points over that community for those other reasons. With the homeowners and with.
You come over in the gateway, they'll tell you, how about yours? Yeah, they're cheap over there. It's sort of like gimme.
Okay, it is time to start. I'm gonna call the meeting to order, it's 3 o'clock. If you'll please join us for the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll just ask that if anybody has a phone, to please turn it on silent. And if you do want to speak to the board, there's forms in the back to fill out, and you can hand them over here to Chris. Okay? And on that, I believe you said you did have a couple people that were registered to speak. Anybody on an agenda item?
No, it's not, it's, yes, there is one on an agenda item, James Braun. Oh, no, it isn't. We have Griffin Drive Lighting with James Braun, and Rhonda Brewer from Lennar would like to discuss pond banks.
Okay. Either one.
James? Oh, do you-
What? Okay. James.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for your time this afternoon, the opportunity to speak to you. First, Margaret and Kathy and Ed, congratulations to being on the Supervisors Board. It was wonderful having you three come and speak at the Hampton Park and have us learn a lot about what your role is and how you help us in our community, so thank you for that. I handed out one sheet of paper with the three issues I want to talk about. The first one is the picket fence gate that's along Griffin. As you drive outside of this facility and you look right across the street, there it is. It's a ugly white picket fence. I call it ugly. And also, on the picture that I provided a year ago, we had significant rains, and that picket fence was taken down, and so multiple pickup trucks drove through that fence. No idea where they were going at that time. They could get into my resident community, Hampton Park. They can't get into it now because we put up barriers at Gateway Lakes Boulevard. But that fence is not in keeping, from my perspective, and Kathy and I have communicated about it a couple of times, it's not in keeping with the community that we want to have in Gateway. It needs to be changed out. White, for some reason, it just is glaring. And it needs to be a fence that will keep pickup trucks from going through at any time. The second issue is Griffin Drive lighting. And Pam Gill, who used to be a supervisor, and I met multiple times. Ed Tinkle is fully aware of the issue, and I spoke a year ago 3 times, in January, April, again in August, about the Gateway, about Griffin Drive lighting and the need for lighting. With a new high school going in at the corner of Griffin and SR 82, everybody believes it's going to go in. We have to get some lighting along Griffin Drive. It's just that black slide there is in the middle of the night, and it's not safe. Whether you're even if you're in a car with bright lights. And then next to that is a picture of one of the lakes in Hampton Park. Rhonda Brewer, who's here, she and I know each other, and we spoke about it, and she indicated that Lennar is busily working on taking care of those lakes, and we hope to have that all taken care of. But it always helps to have you all hear from a resident about that issue. The particular lake that I took a picture of that is on the picture, the piece of paper that you have, is right there as you leave Hampton Park. It's along the main thoroughfare, and it's just an ugly eyesore, as well as it's dangerous. The resident who lives adjacent to that lake, you can see the corner of his home there, he has a riding mower, and he told me, he said, Jim, I can't mow along the lake with my riding mower. I would fall into the lake. And I said, thank goodness you're not doing that. He uses a push mower. So that's the issues I wanted to bring to your attention, and I hope you all can do everything you can to get that fence replaced and get some lighting along Griffin. And then please, I know Rhonda's going to do everything she can to make sure Lennar does what they need to do to get those lakes repaired. Thank you. Any questions?
Madam Chair. Everybody does.
Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you. Jim, first of all, on the fence, picket fence as you call it, do you have in mind the type of fence that would satisfy you and your residents, that would keep a pickup truck from going through?
Well, I think I would like a fence similar to the one that WCI installed along the adjacent to Hampton Park and Griffin. It's a 6-foot-high fence. I think it's aluminum. It's bronze in color. The reason I think that would be great is because if we do that there, then it's in consonance with other fences in the neighborhood, other communities. If you go along Gateway Boulevard, for example, Stony Brook has a fence along Gateway Boulevard that's very similar to the one that I'm talking about. So something in that dark color that's 6 foot high. The other thing that we need to do that I didn't mention is...
I'm sorry.
Welcome to Ready Access by Level 3 Communications. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign.
Sorry.
That's okay. Business takes precedence. There is a dirt road that comes out of the church that's adjacent to this fence. And the other day I was walking along that's called a linear park.
Thank you. Please stand by.
I was walking along the linear park underneath the high wires,
If
which
you
is
are the
right where this
chairperson,
fence
press the
is.
star key.
And here
Please
comes a
enter
car
your
out
chair.
of the church parking lot. gets onto that road, drives down the road. I stopped the kids, there were a couple of teenagers, I said, "Where y'all going?" "Oh, we got a canoe down here in one of the lakes." And we were told we can't canoe in the lake, so we're gonna go get our canoe. So my point is, I think we need to extend the fence along the property line of that
To start
church
your
as well,
conference,
to keep
press
people
1.
from doing
Change
exactly
account
that.
to start your conference
So it's a
now,
lot more
press
than just
star.
what this fence
Or
is
your
now
conference
along
will
Griffin.
now begin. You can record your call by pressing star 2 at
Hold on
any
a second.
time to start or end a recording. For a menu of conference commands, press star at any time. You will now be placed into conference.
Who's on?
Okay.
David Lapidus will be calling you.
He's ready.
I apologize.
I thought it was Doug.
Bill, did I get your,
Now,
did I
he'll be
answer your
here
question?
in
Bill?
about 5-10 minutes.
You still on?
I'm still on, if you
Okay.
may.
Yeah.
If I- Almost a rhetorical question. Who do you think should pay for this fencing? Because what you're describing could add up to some very significant dollars.
Well, I think Gateway CDD should pay for it. The fence that's there
660,
now is your
1,200
fence.
feet.
Okay, so I think.
The picket fence is our fence,
Yes, sir.
and so you want us to put on a 6-foot-high metal fence to
Yep.
keep the,
An appropriate fence, yes, sir.
all right.
Bill, it's about 660 wide, and it's about 660 along the backside of the church, so you're looking at probably about 1,400 feet, and those fences go for about 25 a foot. But the issue is, beyond that, is we need to know, and I asked Jim, and he brought it up again, this issue of linear park. I keep hearing that. Is that a linear park? Where did that come from? And the big question is it ours? Do we have something that we call a linear park that we don't know about? Because if we do, then that definitively says it's ours.
We ought to know about it at least.
Yeah, so, and there's other issues on that because it's access to the other park. But I know what he's talking about. We need to know, do we have a responsibility there for, let's say, maintaining that cart path, that bicycle path? Is that ours to maintain? Is
I know
that part of a linear park? And then flip-flop it on the other side of Hampton Park, it continues on down to Gateway Boulevard, which at one time, years and years ago, the thought was there would be a path through there. But it just kind of peters out when you get maybe 500 feet from Gateway Boulevard. Like, well, do we run out of money or do we run out of blacktop?
You know, at that point you're talking about, Ed, there's 2 posts with a chain
Yes.
between them to keep vehicles from coming in. Florida Power and Light has a key to that chain, so when they need access.
But the same thing applies. Somebody can pull right off Gateway Boulevard, and they have done it, and drive right around that gate and go right on up down the thing. So if we have a responsibility on that, then I think we need to bear up to it and make whatever improvements there are. But I agree with Jim, and I brought it up some time ago, and staff did fix the picket fence. I wouldn't even give it that pleasure of a picket
I was gonna
fence.
say,
It's-
it doesn't
it
look
looks
like
like-
any picket fence I'd ever seen.
Yeah, it
And
looks,
it goes beyond how it looks, it goes to the point of access. Hampton Park
horrible.
is a gated community, access control, and these pickup trucks that were driving through that break in the fence last April, we don't know where they were going, but we pretty sure they were coming into our community without access permission.
If I were to submit that, I think that issue is one that we ought to have some conversation with Lennar about. I'm not willing to just accept and assume the responsibility and the expense of building a fence like that.
Well, I think Florida Power and Light should probably be included too, because it's their high power lines that are there that access control needs to be maintained to keep people out because of their high power.
see, I think
high
that property belongs to WCI Lennar, and it's an easement to FPL.
Yeah.
That's what I am of the understanding, because then when you cross Griffin, it goes to Lee County, and then you go further down the other direction, right past the FPL substation, and it goes to the property owner that owns or is selling what we are now going to hear as Timber Creek. But that piece is WCI, and my concern is that do we have skin in the game of something that has been called a linear park that we have that we don't know about, that we aren't addressing?
Madam Chairperson, is that something that we could ask our attorney to review and advise us on at the next meeting?
Certainly.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Then Margaret, the other part of it is, and I agree with Jim on the lights, we've talked about this, we have street lights ready to go.
No,
Oh, I'm
he's
sorry,
kind
you're, I interrupted you there, go ahead.
Sorry.
You got more?
Go ahead.
Just one other thing. Jim, on this Hampton Lake Park, lake erosion. I've been in Hampton Park a few times, but I'm certainly not as familiar with it as I ought to be, or as you are. It's a relatively new community. Can you tell me roughly how many lakes are in there that look like this?
I think there's 14 lakes altogether in the community, and I believe there are probably 10 or 11 of them that need significant maintenance. This is the very, very worst one. Of course, I was selective and made sure that I got you the picture of the very worst one for effect. But
That's a fair.
yeah,
We expect that.
yeah, exactly. But the others, and I don't know if Rhonda's going to speak later or not, but she and I were talking. I think she's got 10 or 11 that are on her list of lakes that Lennar is going to repair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Continuing with the lakes, I think this is just an issue of, this is, roll the clock forward 20 years, this is where we are right now on 64 other lakes that we don't want to have happen again. I think the issue is we just get out the good old plans and specs of what they called for the lakes to be and make sure they're there when they're turned over, which the big one is the no escarpments and 4 to 1 and control elevations the way they're supposed to be. That's the only way to do it. Then if they have littorals, the littorals will have to be there, or otherwise what we're going to be right back into is more Armamax, $200 a lineal foot, and here we go again. And I don't think we want that on our nickel at this point in time. So I think the key is return them to the 4 to 1 slope, get the littorals in there, stabilize them, and hope that those littorals grow quick enough that we don't get a rain and wash them back down to the bottom of the pond.
And when you say get them back, you're saying, look, that's Lennar's, Lennar has to.
They haven't been turned over yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to make that clear to anyone who might be listening, that
Yeah.
those lakes have not been turned over
Th-
yet. So it's
then-
not our responsibility.
Just our responsibility to make sure that they're done right.
Correct.
Then the second one is the lights, is that indicated at the last meeting. We've had a proposal from Bentley Electric several months ago, before I got on the board, that we need to get a meeting with Bentley Electric. We've got 9 or 10 poles out here that are just like the poles that are out there on Griffin stop at Silver Lake. Extend those down. Now, we need to check to verify if those poles are in good condition. If they're not, then we're going to have to get new poles. But the talk is hooking into the power at the Magnolia Lake pump station, boring under the entrance to Magnolia Lake, then boring across Griffin to the other side of the sidewalk, and then just basically do a pull box at every one of the 9 poles, spaced almost equally like the others. And I agree with Jim. It's pathetic out there right now. You come off 82, and it's pitch dark, and then you hit what you see as real Gateway, and you have lights. Should have never got this way through the development order. It was missed, was botched, but it is what it is. So it's the ball's in our park, in my opinion, to get it fixed. But we need to get Bentley and redo that proposal and get that going. That's all I got.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, when I go out with Elle every Thursday morning, we always have at least one of those poles that are down, so she has to go out and fix. So we're fixing these poles. According to Elle, these are this is our property, okay? I know that the gate there is FPL for their easement. Now, I have asked Elle, I don't know if I was supposed to, if there was anything else we could put there in place of these, because we constantly are going out and repairing them, so we're constantly paying for someone to do the work to repair them, and they keep falling down, so we're not accomplishing anything. So we do need something else, and I don't know if the 6-foot fence would be it, but I'm just thinking something else should be put in place of that. That's my opinion. However, okay, lights, if we get the high school, we're gonna have to have lights there anyway.
We'll get them to
And-
pay for it.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Lots of luck.
Yeah, right. Lots of luck with that.
But it's more of it really is a safety issue for anybody walking, and that is dangerous, because if a car decides to drive down there and doesn't have control of their car and goes onto the sidewalk, they can easily hit somebody, because
Madam Chair,
nobody would see
I was
that.
not trying to be humorous.
No, I know, I know.
If that high school is placed there, part of the site development and order and all of that business will require some lighting, and we need to keep that in the back of our head. I don't know when the final decision is gonna be made on that, but
June.
it's probably gonna be
June.
later this year, I think.
June. But that's 2 years away from being built too, so.
Yeah, I don't think we can go 2 years
No,
without
no,
lights. I mean,
no.
my goodness. Somebody gets injured or killed along Griffin in this
Mm-hmm.
area, who's gonna be held accountable? If it were me, I know one of the folks I would be suing. And I don't mean that as an empty threat or anything, but I mean, that's real, that we need to understand that it's a major safety issue that affects our citizens. And then one more thing about the fence, if I could. Those poles that you're talking about having to repair, they're real easy to knock down. If I want to get into the community, it takes me 30 seconds to knock it down. I can knock down
Just
3
lift
of
them up.
30 seconds, and I drive through, and nobody's the wiser. No cameras or anything watching who's doing what.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
I just changed. It's okay.
Next is Ron Brewer. She'd like to talk about ponds and Hampton.
Follow up.
Hello, you may remember me from when we were WCI Communities, and for your information, we were acquired by Lennar on February 10th. So we're now Lennar. So basically, there's 2 things I want to talk about here, and the first is just the issue with turnover of assets in general. So despite my best efforts in working with staff, and April's been very responsive and very good to work with, we have several packages that have been into Gateway CDD, legal packages that we still have yet to receive any comments from. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I've made several emails, several requests out to get status updates, and I get silence. So I'm here to bring this to your attention, and I'm going to walk you through the list of packages that we've submitted to Gateway CDD. These are for Pelican Preserve, and I'd like to be able to come out of here with some type of commitment that we're going to get a response back. So the first package that we submitted was for Carina 2 in Pelican Preserve. This package was submitted on September 23rd of 2016. These are legal packages that go into Tony for review and comment, and we have not received any comments.
Date again, please.
Carina 2,
The date.
September 23rd, 2016.
Thank you.
The second one is for Matarita 3, and we submitted that on November 11th, or November 7th, 2016. The third package is Casella 1. We submitted it on December 9th. The fourth package is Casella 2, also submitted on December 9th. The fifth package is Gateway Roads. We did get a legal response back, and we did resubmit, and that was resubmitted back to Tony's office on February 7th. We haven't received any comments back on that resubmittal. And just for your information, we also have Matarita 4, which was submitted on February 1st, and then Prado on February 15th.
Do you have a list of those that you can drop with us? You were going faster than I can write.
Rhonda, what was the Prado? What number on Prado?
Prado is 215.
What was the number? 2? Prado 2?
Oh, just Prado.
Prado.
Just Prado.
And that was Matarita 4
Yeah, Matarita 4.
on February.
So it takes a lot of time, effort, money to get these packages in and submitted. And I don't see what the issue is with trying to get a timely response back. I mean, if South Florida Water Management District can give us a 30-day response time, other governmental agencies can give us a 30-day response time. Why can't we expect the same thing? So, and the issue for us too is that we bear the financial burden of maintaining these assets until they are turned over. So having a package in for 6 months without any comments is just simply not acceptable anymore. And we've got to do a better job of responding in a timely fashion.
Question, Margaret?
I was gonna ask Tony if he wanted to respond.
I don't have the whole list with me today, and I could find a memo to the board, yesterday.
Okay.
My question, what are these closeouts?
Yes.
They're all closeouts?
Yes, these are, we submit like engineering packages in advance that have all the back Ts, engineering certifications, South Florida certification. So that's one package that's been in. The packages I'm talking about here, these are all legal conveyance packages.
So it's not engineering?
No, it requires legal response.
Are these areas built out? Are they,
Yes.
so there's no more building going on in any of these areas?
Well, they're
Home building is what I'm asking. All these areas are completed?
Well, Prado isn't completed, but we don't need to finish home construction in order to get the right-of-way and the lakes and the drainage accepted for operations and maintenance. That's not a requirement. So you don't have to have the final house built in order to turn over the package, if that's what you're asking.
Margaret, again, question. I'm not thoroughly familiar with our design permit criteria manual, but do we call out a response time in our manual of return on documents?
No.
We don't say
I don't
anything?
think so.
2 weeks.
Oh, it does say 2 weeks? Mr. Caldwell
Does it
says
say
2 weeks.
Consecutive?
2 weeks.
I have to check that. I won't read that. I can understand your concern on this, and I realize some of these are old enough that we do need to give you some kind of a response. My concern as a resident and as the chairperson is, if there's still construction going on in these areas and you turn these assets over to us and damage is done by your vendors who are out there working, then that falls on us. That's our responsibility to fix. And I don't think that should be the responsibility of the residents to pay for damage that's done during construction of homes.
David, do you want to come up and speak to that issue?
I don't know, you got a choice.
Dave Caldwell, WCI Lenore, for the record. I understand your position, and that sounds reasonable, except that's not a permit criteria. Are we going to have arbitrary decisions made on this? If we are going to be judged by new rules every time we submit a package because that's what you want to do, WCI Lenore doesn't think that's fair. We proceed with our development on the basis of the requirements from the county, South Florida Water Management District, whatever it is. We're trying to play by the rules that you lay down. We'd like you to follow your own rules.
David, I would indicate as one board member, that's exactly the way I feel. If we want something changed on our design criteria manual, then we change it and we amend it. But if we have rules that we established, I believe we should go by them. And I don't think we should have any excuses as to why we go. If we don't like it, change it.
Yeah, and if I can get the dates from Rhonda again. Rhonda, what's the date for Prado that you mentioned?
Here, I've got them all right here, Tony.
2/15.
I'll pass them down to you.
2:15. I just
Okay, I-
don't like playing these
Yes.
games to where you do that.
But, there's also performance bonds in place. You have a 10% maintenance bond at the very least. Those are not insignificant sums of money. And clearly, I think you would have the absolute right, whether it's a permit criteria manual or nothing, or not stated, if you know we've damaged something, why, your staff wouldn't point that out to us and say, hey, we saw you damage this water meter, you broke this curb, you did this. We're big boys, we're going to fix it.
And your staff does a great job of doing that, by the way.
David, hold on just a minute. Mr. Guy, I think, had a question.
Yes, sir.
David, as I listened to Rhonda a moment ago, I seem to recall that she used the word a legal package. Now,
Correct.
To that,
Well,
does that, may I ask a question, please?
yes, sir.
Does that mean that goes to our attorney for legal consideration and doesn't have anything to do with the construction phase?
That's one way to look at it. Your permit criteria manual for the types of turnovers we're dealing with, be it lakes, utilities, or whatever, has a whole list of things that you require. Certified plans, test reports, as-built drawings, all kinds of things. Included in that same list are what we call legal documents that Tony would be concerned with as opposed to Danny Nelson. As to the text, there's things like bill of sale, owner's affidavit, title work, and be it a deed or easement documents. So depending on the type of the project, the legal package follows the engineering submittals, but closely there too. You know, 1 month we might send in the engineering package of completion, and then within a month get into you the legal package. They go into your front office here at the district. April or your staff forward it on to whoever needs to see it. My guess, Tony.
And I'm understanding, do I understand that the legal package that you submitted, you're stating was totally complete and correct?
Well,
from your standpoint?
it'd be simple for me to say, yes, they're absolutely perfect and complete. And we believe that to be the case. But it's certainly up to Tony and anyone else on the district side to say, well, can you fix we found a typo, or you're missing a this, or we'd like you to change the sentence in the deed or the owner's affidavit. That's not unusual.
You don't know of any known faults when you submit it, is that so?
That's correct. And Tony does find errors, and we're happy to address them as we find them. But again, Rhonda, in coming to you today, said, we've heard nothing.
Margaret, 2 questions. Does your submittal require a work product from us and/or just a simple approved or not approved?
Well, if the package were to the district's satisfaction, we would expect maybe an email back that says everything's fine.
But I mean, do we have to produce a form, a document, or something
Well,
to satisfy?
Yes. Well, what ends up
Other than a
happening?
letter?
Let's assume that both the engineering and the legal packages are perfect. I believe your staff will then schedule it for a board action at a future meeting that says, we've reviewed all the materials, they're satisfactory, we recommend acceptance, or whatever the appropriate language might be.
Then the second follow-up is this internal. Are we keeping a spreadsheet or log of these when they come in that's fallen off the radar screen? I mean, September's a long time. When they come in, you bring them to the office here, and then we redistribute them to either the engineer or attorney or whoever?
Yes, they're either physically dropped off or come by FedEx, that kind of package.
Do we keep a spreadsheet, a log sheet of all these submittals? Do we know where they're at in the queue?
We track it closely at the staff time for all the engineering and inspections and chemical sampling and that type of thing, and then the legal package goes to the attorney. So and especially like on the utility end of it, we bring it to you, you accept the utility, so now we have the storm sewer outstanding, the ponds, the roads, and that package involving the road right-of-ways and the legal documents all go to legal for review. At that point, our hands are off it until it comes back from legal, and then we produce an agenda item for board acceptance.
Seems to me that we could add a item to our agenda every month, since it's at least every 2 weeks and possibly 3 weeks, depending on the end of the month to the first of the next month, that if our requirements are for a 2-week turnaround, that we should be checking these things and not having this, get in this position.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, if I may, once again, I don't have the complete list, I'm just going through my emails, trying to get some of the history on some of these, for example, Casella Utilities. The question you raised about whether or not we're willing to accept the ownership or maintenance if there are no units, that's an issue that we raised back in January. And then they provided a letter of January 30th, and Chris provided that to me from the engineer for the developer. So that Casella, it says December 9th. And if we're talking about the utilities, that's an issue that we may have concern about with regards to accepting it. We've had that discussion before, if there are no vertical units. And some of the other items and projects I mentioned, she did not differentiate whether it's road, drainage, landscaping, or utilities.
Well-
And if we could do that, that'd be very helpful also.
Well-
Because some of the roads and drainage have different issues than utilities.
We realize that, Tony. The packages have been delivered. We haven't heard anything from staff. We're just asking for a response. If you look at the packages, then you can determine and get back to us whether there are issues. We'd just like to hear from you.
Bill, did you have anything else?
Well, I don't have
Kathy? Doug?
No.
Only to the extent that I hear what Tony's saying, but again, if our criteria manual calls for X, whether we like X or not, we should be providing X. If we got problems with what we've got in there, let's have a meeting and let's talk about changing the design permit review manual. I don't like reneging with people. That's not the way to do business.
Tony, did you have anything else? How
No, not
soon-
right now.
How
Nope, I'm
soon
looking.
can you provide the board
I will-
an update on this
The
list?
next board meeting,
The next board meeting?
yes.
Okay.
So that's another
And if
3
there's
weeks.
something that can be brought before us at the next board meeting for
I will
approval
include
to
those.
turn over,
Yes.
please do that.
From my perspective, yes.
We'll get this ball rolling back down the.
Okay, that'd be great, I appreciate it. So then the second thing I wanted to talk about briefly was just to let you know, Hampton Park, that permit for the lake banks and the drainage was all part of one permit. So we weren't able to turn over any of the lake banks until we completed the last phase of construction in Hampton Park, which we have done. And then we had conducted a walkthrough with Gateway staff last year and looked at old historical lake bank issues. And then we met with our project engineer, Baracco and Associates, who determined a scope of services and work that would be needed to get the lake banks restored back to the initial ERP permit criteria for South Florida Water Management District. So they completed construction plans. We went out to bid. Lennar is in a process of awarding that bid. And in an abundance of caution, I sat with Chris Shoemaker on Tuesday here at Gateway, and we reviewed the construction plans and made sure that from the Gateway's perspective that they were comfortable with the scope that was being addressed, which are several lakes. So Chris said that he agreed with the scope. We've got our project engineers in attendance if you have any technical questions. They're also going to be doing construction inspection along the way. When the work's completed, which we hope will take a couple of months to be done by summertime, we'll then do another formal walkthrough with Gateway and their district engineer, make sure everybody's comfortable, and sign off on the project. So we're working hard with Gateway up front to make sure that they're comfortable with the scope and everything. But I just want a commitment from the board that once we complete all this work, because as you know, it's several $100,000, that we're going to have a timely review of the package and turnover. Because we don't want to be sitting here 6 months and a year from now after we've completed the work and be, not receiving any comments back on legal.
Margaret, questions again.
Go ahead.
We've been down this road on previous projects, and we're not going to go in the water that's way over the dam. But there's other things that go into it with the ponds, and one of them is obviously the storm sewer system. We learned a real nasty lesson with Stony Brook, if everybody remembers, what happens when you don't get record drawings and/or when construction was not properly inspected and written off on.
Well, I'm already ahead of you there, Ed, because we had the sewer videotaped.
Okay.
And we will be turning those videotapes over as part of the package. That wasn't even a requirement of Hampton Park, but we went ahead and did it anyway.
Where I was going was is that while these water levels are down and this work is being done on the lake bank restoration, it's a perfect time for us to be checking all of these structures coming in to verify that we've got unrestricted flow in those as to what we have found up at Stony Brook. But have we received record drawings on this with all the invert elevations and everything on the storm sewer network and the slopes of all the ponds? We've got all that? If we've got that, we're way ahead of the game. Way ahead.
My records indicate that the engineering package was submitted on April of 2015.
2015?
Yes, sir. 2015.
Danny, have all those record drawings been checked? Everything okay?
Yeah,
That's good.
That's all been vetted.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
I have a question regarding how, is material going to be laid at the lake banks, or are you just going to put soil and grass? Or is that some material like Armamax or something like that going to be used to repair these lake banks, or are you just planning on dirt and grass?
We're importing fill and sod to the permit criteria manual.
That would be the proper way. Yeah,
Okay.
you want select fill in there to recompact those banks.
Would you say that again, Ed?
You want selected fill. The material that we found that's sloughed off on most of these, that you try to put it back up on the bank and try to compact it, it's like trying to compact mush. The first rain that falls on it, it slides it right back down in the water. So you want a good fill to return those to whether they were 4-to-1 slopes or 6-to-1 slopes, whatever the DO called for, or the plans. I think the issue is how do we stabilize those? Because the day we select them, they could be 4-to-1, 6-to-1, look perfect. Get a gully washer the next day, and they're down in the water. So we've got to make sure that all those requirements are met, and if it requires littorals, which I imagine it does, those littorals need to be in place to make sure we don't have the problem.
Okay.
How do we verify that, Ed? Just who would be on the?
I'm assuming that Chris and/or Tetra Tech or both have been out and have given Lennar a, what do you call it, punch list of things that have to be done to return these ponds or make these ponds in an acceptable form. I'm assuming we've done that.
Correct, and it's bringing them back to the permits.
Original permit.
Issued by the Water Management District, and there is no material or Armamax required by the district.
That's correct.
Water Management District or the CDD for that, so they're just repairing them to original permit condition.
That's all we can do.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask that question. Kathy?
Yeah. Wouldn't they also have to fulfill our pond requirements that we adopted, that the board adopted a couple of months ago?
No.
No? Okay.
Well, it would only to the point that it complies with county requirements. But I'm sure their contracts and their approvals and DOs were prior to our pond standards.
Okay.
But I just would find it amazing that there would be any differentiation between them.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead. Bob.
Excuse me, Robert. My leg went to sleep. Bob Geppert, I'm here representing PPAC today, but I'm also deeply involved in the ponds. Inasmuch as the 6 parcels that were mentioned today are all in Pelican Preserve, I would just like to refresh some memories for anyone that may not know this, but we have an established procedure within PPAC that when ponds are presented to us, and the last presentation that we have been made aware of, that I'm aware of, was Track L, and we have been working with WCI, now Lennar, and Tetra Tech. We walk the properties, we make checklists, and those checklists are followed up. And one of the key criteria, as Ed said, is that we inspect all the piping, the sewer piping, because of our prior past experience. And to that end, WCI took on the cost of hiring Morris Riley, but we were prepared to do that ourselves. But they said that they would do it, and that was great. And we got a report back dated February the 3rd of 2017 from Morris Riley. I assume we all got it the same day. Track L has been in the works since well before last September. I don't know what all the other issues were but I know what the specific issues with the ponds were. And as of right now, that list of deficiencies and we generally refer to a deficiency as a pipe that is blocked 30% or more. They're the ones that we work on. Anything less than that is just considered to be normal. And I assume that, because I know sewer reviewers have been out there working on it, that they're working off that punch list. And then from the ponds perspective, I can't speak for the roads yet, but then we would be done with it. But the 6 items mentioned, Carina 2, Matarita 3, Casella 1, et cetera, those have never been submitted for us because we haven't walked them. We haven't tried to get anybody to video them. So I guess I don't know what's happened from September to date. But the last one that I'm aware of is Track L. So I guess, process-wise, it certainly leaves a lot to be done. But within PPAC, we do have an established process, and people go and walk, and we look at the landscaping, we look at the roads, we look at the curbs, and we spend a lot of attention on the ponds.
Okay.
This brings up a whole new ballgame. What I understood, that Lennar is submitting a package, has submitted a package to engineering, and we're clean on engineering. We've submitted a package to legal, and we have some issues to resolve there. Are those packages, are you saying, Bob, that PPAC is to review those and endorse them before we approve them?
We are focused on the engineering aspects of the road. Is it safe? Do we have adequate lighting? Those
So not
types
the-
of things.
Not the legal, the engineering.
The engineering. Same thing with the ponds. We work hand in glove with Tetra Tech and with WCI, and we all walk and look at it and say, they're okay or they're not.
But my point is, on those 6 or 7 that.
I've done nothing on those. I don't know anything about them.
They may be, because most of those are utilities, I believe, is what I think Ron mentioned, correct?
Well, all of these areas, all these communities have ponds.
There were several lakes in Trackdale that we walked and were repaired.
Yes.
Last year. And then the request came up to do the videotaping of the sewer, which wasn't a requirement, but we went ahead and did that, and that's been in the process. It's taken a lot longer to get that done, but that has just been completed, so.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that we don't go and approve something and then find out that PPAC wasn't involved and.
Well, on these 6, we
saw it.
haven't been, obviously. And, again, we appreciate the fact that they foot the bill for the video inspection, but PPAC was prepared, we had budgeted money, and we were going to do it. It just came out long and the short of it, they just felt that they would do it. That's great. And I hope they do the other 6 communities. But if they don't, before we sign off, we will.
Danny, are you of the opinion that you've done the coordination that you guys need to do, at least on engineering with Bob and PPAC?
Keep in mind too that, I don't know, some of the lakes were constructed previously. So keep in mind that we got to look at the timing of the permit criteria manual and what the requirement was at the time. So the newer stuff, obviously, as far as the storm pipes go, the newer stuff is required. Some of the older stuff wasn't. So as far as the lake banks as well, we didn't have as clear of information in terms of as-builting. So I just say we got to look back at the timing of the actual lake itself and not the development. So yeah, I've been communicating with our staff, even as we're sitting here, about where we sit with some of
Yeah,
this
well,
stuff.
the big thing I just want to say, make sure is that PPAC doesn't come back after the fact, after we've dotted all the i's and crossed the t's and say, hey, we don't agree with this.
No, absolutely.
That's my point.
Yeah, absolutely with all of those.
And I think on that point, if I may, Madam Chairman, Mr. McGuffin makes a point. I'm looking at the transmittal letter that I received first week in February as to Metarita Phase 4, and it involves drainage and lakes and roads, as well as utilities, sidewalks. So,
If I can
we'll
get,
just make sure that Mr. Gephardt gets all those.
Well, and
Yeah,
And Tony-
all 6 that were mentioned here today.
I'm not sure if it's all 6, but I'll double check, and we'll double check.
There's ponds in every one of those communities.
Yeah, because it says Metarita Phase 4 is roads, curbs, sidewalks, streetlights, signage, lake tracks, and drainage systems.
Okay. Tony, you said you were gonna bring us an update.
Yes, I will.
On all of these for the
Yes.
next meeting.
Including
So-
whether or not Mr. Gephardt's seen them.
And Jim Brand, I'm gonna let you speak, and then we need to move this meeting along, please.
You have one comment.
Okay.
Thank you, Margaret. Real quickly, we talk about storm lakes in Hampton Park. We have preserves. So did somebody or is somebody from Gateway CDD going to review the preserves and make sure they meet the required criteria? Because I know that some of them have been complained about by residents, and they've had people from Gateway CDD and from the state environmental organization come out and say, oh, these preserves are all done completely wrong, they have to be redone. So has that been part of Gateway CDD's analysis when you looked at Hampton Park?
Well, I would hope that if we're doing ponds and accepting ponds, I would hope that conservation areas, wetlands are included with it.
So that's a question, Rhonda.
I would hope.
Does your,
They're very separate in Pelican.
yeah, they are in Hampton Park too, even though they may be
So-
close.
The preserves will be certified and turned over. That's part of the process.
But are they inclusive with the one you're asking for right now? Or you're working on right
We're
now?
working on that right now, so you'll get both.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
They're
it'll be
independent.
certified.
But they're doing both.
Ron, am I correct, there's no preserves in these 6 that you mentioned in Pelican?
For Pelican, that's.
Is that correct?
I can't tell you if they are.
Okay, one last thing, and that is, you all were talking about the sewer systems and the lakes. In Hampton Park, we will end up owning and maintaining the streets, okay? Not you. And the streets and the sewer systems are all hand in glove.
That's-
So when we do developer turnover, our intent was to make sure that the streets meet code and that curbs and everything are done right, as well as the sewer system.
That's a
And-
problem we have throughout Gateway, the storm sewer network, including of the drainage inlets and basins and all that, manholes that are in the streets.
In the
They're the
street.
CDDs, and the roads are the HOAs.
So,
So that's a coordination that, it's been a nightmare, because when you go to do resurfacing or repairing of curbs, a lot of times you have an impact because of the storm sewer.
and most of that
It's a
will be
problem.
done after the project that Rhonda's talking about, after Lennar's done that. And then first quarter 2018, we hope we're doing developer turnover. We will come along as the residents and say, wait a minute, this street curb is screwed up and it's right next to this manhole.
That's in my opinion, that is our job to make
So
sure
the-
that doesn't happen.
So at that point in time, if there's something screwed up that is Gateway Services, we would come to you instead of Lennar to say, hey, fix this.
If it has to do with the storm sewer system, it's ours.
Great. Thank you very much for that clarification.
And just one last thing too, do we have a documented process on how, let's say in this instance, Pelican Preserve gets notified when these
Yeah.
packages are delivered?
That's a good point.
Because if Bob's unaware of these 6 or 7 packages, I'd like to understand what the process is.
In the past, I always got it from Scott Copeland, or Scott Cottle, but I don't know.
Well, if we have a log sheet and it goes to Tony and goes to Danny when a package comes in, it just seems to me that in the case of Pelican, that Bob or his group would be notified at that time, CC'd or something,
I can tell you,
so
nobody-
that you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But
Nobody in PPAC, we talk about it every meeting.
So Chris,
But we're
can
not
we-
pushing it because it doesn't cost us money.
Yeah.
We like that.
So-
I'm serious.
Chris, can we
When
just,
refer-
as a takeaway for today, because we just ensure that there is a documented process and that, that there's measures in place to follow that moving forward?
Sure, and as an example, with Prado, when they're getting ready to submit those documents, Chris Shoemaker, district manager, I did the walkthrough with Stephen Agapi at Tetra Tech the other day, and we spent about 3 hours going storm sewer grate, pulling the grate, seeing if there was any debris, seeing the outfalls, and writing a punch list for the contractors. And several of them had some minor issues with them. We give them the punch list, they come back after the repairs are made, we go out and inspect those items on the punch list.
what we
To
do.
my knowledge, in the permit criteria manual and my practice so far with these communities is I have not involved the HOAs or representatives of the HOA in that process.
Well, and that was part of my question is if it's a defined process and that is a part of it, then let's make sure we're following. If it's not, then that might be another topic
Prior
of
to our
discussion.
most recent transitions between April and Chris, maybe that's where the ball dropped.
Yeah.
Every other manager, we were always intimately involved. and go up jointly.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
big crowd.
and Bob, to be honest, I mean, that's kind of where we're at too with transition from old way of doing business and the new way of doing business. There are some good and bad that we've got to work through.
And I just have to say this, this was one of the benefits from a PPAC perspective of having the ops manager in our meetings. Because we learned a lot and we shared a lot. And when that stopped happening, this is just one of those balls that just dropped off the table. The items like this. Before, we were very intimately involved. They knew everything we were doing, the ops managers, and we knew what was happening. And apparently, this is one of the ones that fell. And no, it never dawned on us that more packages were being submitted. We were still working on track L, and we still are. I didn't know there was a backlog, so.
Well, why don't you, as a takeaway for you, Bob, why don't you get with Chris and kind of talk through it, see what makes sense, and maybe if you guys can come to terms.
For the Pareto review.
Yeah, okay.
My team.
That's it.
I think we have somebody on the phone, Tony, that you had requested.
David Lapidus, he's probably just taking it easy while.
Watching NCAA games.
Wake you up or keep you awake?
So I'm assuming you want to move to
No, I'm fine. I think
him next? or-
David just has, by 5 o'clock, he has to be done by
Just get it done.
4:45, so.
Let's just
No,
Let's get it done.
let's go ahead and do
Okay.
it, Tony.
Okay. Let's see.
So we're moving to agenda item.
Is this the resolution?
Yes, the
5A.
supplementing resolution 2017-11, I believe was emailed, was that emailed
Yeah.
out, I believe? And it just clarifies and adjusts and modifies and amends.
This is a walk-on item to
Correct.
clarify
I
for people
apologize.
that are looking for,
The document. And therefore, Madam Chairman, you may wish to open up to the floor for anybody that wants to make any comments on it. And it's a resolution 2017-11, proposed to amend and supplement resolution number 2017-07, adopted on February 16th, 2017, dealing with the borrowing of up to $12.5 million from the SRF program. And the purpose of this resolution is twofold. And David, if I misstate, please correct me. It references the interests of two banks to be trustees, and it references that the board has made a determination that they can use either Iberia Bank or Regions Bank or U.S. Bank for purposes of being the trustee under any required trust indenture, and that the board chose Regions Bank. And it further references that AJC Associates was not available to accept the engagement to do the work for the assessment methodology, and modifies the resolution to reflect Real Estate Econometrics Inc. to serve as the assessment methodology consultant. And it's in good form to request approval of this resolution 2017-11.
Very good, Tony.
Thank you.
This needs a motion.
Yes.
I'll make the motion that we approve resolution number 2017-11.
I'll second that.
and before I take the vote, I will ask, is there anyone in the audience that wants to make a comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam
Aye.
Chair. And there's two items, one's that, and both verbal right now or oral, and David, only because David's also been involved in it, is that with regards to the assessment methodology and the engineer's report, neither of those are ready at this time. And they're needed and necessary for the board to have a resolution at a later point in time to adopt a preliminary assessment role, set a hearing on, having a final hearing on the assessment role, and that would, those documents, the approved preliminary assessment role and the approved engineer's report will be utilized in filing the bond validation complaint. And at the end of this meeting, we'll be requesting that the board continue this meeting to a date and time certain. We're anticipating Danny having the draft engineer's report tomorrow. And that's a yes from Mr. Nelson. And that will be provided to the assessment methodology consultant, Russ Wire, that we just mentioned, and he will then incorporate that into his report, and hopefully we'll have a staff review of all of that by Monday, so that we could then have it to the board in advance of a continued meeting to a date and time certain of next week, if that's the board's desire. Otherwise, we could do it at the April 2nd meeting, which I think is the first meeting in April. Is April 2nd?
That was
April
April 6th.
April 6th? Well, we would request a date and time certain continued meeting then to try to shorten the time frame. And the reason I'd like to have David maintained on the phone, because David would be instrumental in preparing the requisite resolutions, and also he would need to be available. So that's one item when we get to the end of the board meeting. And if we continue to a date and time certain, we don't need to notice it or re-advertise. And that's why we would request that.
This is all the validation process?
Yes.
Doesn't have anything to do with the interim financing?
No, that's correct, it does not.
Okay.
And on the interim financing, and David again was involved with that, so David, thank you for staying on the phone for that. I just today received the loan documents from Center State Bank. And it's quite a lengthy package, and there are some fundamental issues with it because it's set up to be a business loan with mortgages and financing agreements and security interests that are not allowed under Florida law with the governmental body. So we have some work to do to finalize this with Center State Bank. This is, right now, it's not an acceptable form. And when we have the continued meeting, if the documents, I think the board approved and authorized the chairman to sign documents as approved by council and manager. But we may want to have this also on that continued meeting. In the meantime, we'll work on these documents expeditiously so we can have this loan finalized.
Okay.
In English, I don't like what the translation of that was. Does that mean we can't issue a notice to proceed?
What that means is I would not recommend this loan document because I think it can't be by Florida law. I cannot provide an opinion that it's valid and enforceable in all its terms. David, do you agree?
Yes.
Tony, what is the first date? You're saying you're gonna do this expeditiously, but if we're gonna continue this to a date and time certain, how certain are you of when you can get this done?
I'd like to try for next Thursday or Friday, if that's acceptable to the board.
We've got to get started on this work,
I
people.
know,
This is
I know.
ridiculous.
Is everyone available on the 23rd, 3/23,
What is that?
Next Thursday.
Thursday?
Yeah.
And again,
At which
Stephen, you indicated that Center State Bank had provided loans to other CDDs?
Yes,
Pardon?
yes.
Were they in the same form of documents as this package that you received? I put them
Well,
on the spot.
like I said, we just got it.
Okay.
So I'm still going through it as well, so.
3
If you-
o'clock?
If you can pull out what you've received from other districts, that way we can share that with this current attorney and loan officer.
You won't be here?
Yeah, I'm booked.
Are you able to appear by telephone, Mr. Banks, or not?
What if we
At
did?
4.
What if we did 4 o'clock?
I'm
Or
in-
I
I'm
could-
in the
I could
dentist
either-
chair at
I could
4
either dial in.
Okay, he can't do it. at
He
4
sure
o'clock.
said
What
can't
about
talk.
Friday? How about Friday the 24th at 3 o'clock?
I can do that.
What about moving it up the other way,
To Wednesday?
to Wednesday?
Wednesday afternoon?
Wednesday afternoon?
What time
I
is
can do
my
that.
meeting
What
on the
time do you say,
24th?
3 or 4?
Do you remember?
How long is it gonna be, Tony?
It won't be that long, assuming,
With
once
the
again,
gentleman.
assuming we have.
Let's do
Say 3.
Four,
assessment
four,
of-
say 4
It's in the
o'clock
morning.
Wednesday.
Let's do
Thank
Wednesday
you.
at 4.
Wednesday at 4.
Wednesday the 22nd,
David, are you available?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
3:20.
If something comes up, Sandy, I'll see if Sandy can take the call.
Very good, but right now you're available.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So now we're looking at Wednesday,
22nd.
3/22, at what time?
4 o'clock.
4
4
o'clock.
PM?
Danny, you're fine? Okay, thank you. And,
Can't make it
I'm
3?
not sure.
Why don't we
I'll
make
sure
it
Russ is
3?
available.
Yeah, 3.
I've got meetings. I can't.
Are you good at 4?
I can be here at 4, but I can't.
4's fine with me.
I don't know about 4.
I mean, if everyone else can make it without me, then you guys.
The issue is unless and until this is closed, we can't issue a notice to proceed.
Right. And that's what we need, so.
Again, we just got the loan documents today at 12:30, 12:23.
You can be here? It's good for you, Kathy?
What time? What day?
4 o'clock on the 22nd.
I'm checking. I don't know about 4 o'clock on the 22nd. Can't do it in the
So
morning, huh?
you are of the opinion that getting them straightened out to eliminate those clauses, it's just resubmitting back to us a document, a
Yes.
corrected document?
Yes, once I have a conversation with them, and again, hopefully,
4
once again,
o'clock,
we
good for
had some
you?
emails
I'm
going.
not sure. There is something there, but I'm not sure about the word.
Okay.
We had emails where initially they talked about, it, by way of example, a uniform commercial code financing statement being filed. I sent them a copy of the statute that says it does not apply. And so that gave me sort of a hint that there might be some issues, and they would not give the loan document until I provided a draft opinion letter without seeing any documents. So anyways, this is a typical commercial transaction, it's not a governmental transaction set of documents.
But what I was thinking is if the phone call, has anybody talked to the bank to let them know that we have these issues?
I've not
Are
had
they
the
aware?
conversation yet. That was gonna
Steve,
wait
have
for
you
Steve.
talked to them? You
I'm
talked to the
sorry?
bank? My thought is if we talk to the bank tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, why can't they have these documents here Monday?
Well, I think it depends upon, you know, how much of the loan documents that Tony has concerns about. Because, yeah, if it's just pulling out a couple things, then, yeah, I don't think that'll be a problem if they just gotta correct their language here and there. But again, unfortunately, because of how long it took to get the documents, we just haven't had the time to really see how much of it would need to be changed. If it's just a little bit, then yeah.
I was trying to figure out if there was a way to accelerate this
We'll
even
try it
quicker.
to do
Is it
that.
just a matter of the documents not being tailored for a government entity?
Yes, in fact, I have a set that I did, Florida Community Banks.
Yeah.
They sent loan documents that, I looked at them when we did a transaction from another district. I probably had 5 comments and did review quickly. I mean, and I've run into this before with Council for Iberia and Naples, where they had similar documents to what I'm looking at now, and we ultimately revised them. And so I have 2 other sets of documents that I could share with them.
I think-
Well, that's where I was going, is that if we've got a sample of what we've done on another, send it to the bank and say, do
I
this.
do, I can do that quickly.
Yeah.
Well, let's leave it at
Leave it at Wednesday at
22nd
4.
Because I think we'll all be able to make it, and that gives enough time that we should be able to resolve this at that time.
Are we gonna call that a continuation of this
Yes,
meeting then?
We won't adjourn this meeting, we'll continue it to,
And then just to make sure that we don't have any other hiccups, will we have, on the assumption that at 4:10 plus or minus, that after we've accepted this, we can issue the notices to proceed? Or is there anything else that anybody knows is standing in the way?
Are you looking at me?
looking at all of you.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I just want to light this candle and get it going, because I thought we were going to do that today.
Okay, so, is there anything else that we need, or can we let this gentleman?
David, unless you want to stay and watch and or listen, or
No, I think you'd be better served to move on and maybe actually pick up these loan documents and look at them.
yeah, and again, Stephen and I will huddle up today, as well as much time as it takes in the next couple of days, I'll devote to it. Make sure.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Okay, District Council, I'm gonna stick with you. Is there anything else that you needed to bring to our attention?
No, ma'am, I'll just have an item on the next agenda. The letter from the state attorney's office on DMS will include that next agenda packet.
Okay, thank you. I'll go back to District Engineer.
Okay, for the record, Danny Nelson, Tetra Tech. To continue on with the lake banks, to hopefully give a little bit of comfort that we're ready to hit the ground running, we have held pre-construction meetings with the contractors. We know which lakes we're going to start on, so they're ready to go. Same with the material. The material will take about a week to deliver once that notice to proceed has been issued. So everybody is aware and they're ready to start as soon as we can. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of update there that we've kept the contractors involved. To that, a matter of housekeeping, does a motion have to be made to continue the meeting to that
At
date?
the end of the meeting.
Okay. Tony already mentioned the engineer's report. That'll be completed in draft form tomorrow, so that'll be emailed out to everybody. Again, that's primarily for the long-term financing, won't impact the short-term. anyhow, and then
Long-term,
the
meaning
long-term
the state-
finance,
the state revolving
the
fund?
state, yes, because we need the validation for that portion of it. And then lastly, I think what we'll do is on the next meeting, I'm going to bring back the storage. We have some design revisions to that. I actually saw markups to that that's going back in for drafting, so we can bring that before the board. But I know that's probably a little bit low priority right now. So that's really all I have.
Madam Chairman, on one aspect of it, it's kind of cost counsel and engineer. The loan agreement for the design work, it's been executed. We've made 2 minor changes to it, and the chair executed it today. It'll be sent off to the state.
And we have the state's approval on everything else, as I understand it.
Yeah, the everything there is set. We, in fact, as of February 10th, any dollars that we spend are recoverable through disbursement with the state through that long-term loan.
What was the date, Dan? As of
February 10th.
February 10th.
That was the date of the public hearing, and so anything after that we were okay with doing.
Margaret, do you want, well, let's handle it now, it's because it's going to be on Danny. I got a couple of issues. Pond 106, we kind of left that in limbo at the last meeting of what we're going to do. I went back, and unless somebody else can find something to the contrary, Pond 106, 107, 108, this is Sable Dunes Gateway. 7 and 8 are great, look great. 106 is the one we did an experiment where we didn't put down the stone, and we're getting some erosion. The residents out there are certainly looking at, I like what the other two have, bring me the same. Going back in, leveling out the dirt and putting in stone on 3 sides. But to show and or demonstrate, I believe you have Armamax on all 4 sides, correct?
Yes.
We might want to take and do a demo on the golf course side while we're doing the stone to get it fixed, of planting the littorals on Armamax, not drilling Armamax, planting it on the Armamax, on the material that we lay down, and see if this is going to work so we know in the future just where this littoral issue is headed relative to Armamax.
Yeah, and to
Because we got to do something with 106. In the last meeting, we kicked it down the road.
well, to further explain that, the question came up before as to whether or not the Armamax had to be cut, and the manufacturer, of course, has said, no, you do not have to cut it. So that's why what Ed's talking about is planting on top of
Planting
the
on top.
Armamax. So, and that's
And
what the
question is
board
whether or not
essentially
that will
approved.
hold over.
That's the question.
If it'll take
That would be
root.
a good way to experiment on golf course property. It's
I
on the
think
golf
if
course side.
there's an opportunity there to prototype, I would definitely jump on it.
I think so too.
And that was essentially what the board previously approved a year ago. It was never implemented.
Let's do that.
But the other part of it is adding the stone, which was, I forget, what was the number, 27?
Not the 52 stone?
Well, adding the stone on those 3 sides.
Oh, the cost?
I thought Tyler had an estimate.
He did. He did. I
$25,000,
don't-
$27,000.
Yeah.
But that didn't include 200 times 3, 600 plants,
Right.
$1, and a half each. Probably $2 time to get them in the ground.
Yeah.
Time out,
Say about $30,000 maybe.
Madam
Yes.
Chairperson. Where is all this money coming from?
Well, it's pond work, and I suppose it could come from
Magic
one,
beans.
well, it certainly cannot come from the loan and or the
For sure.
bond.
I just
It-
was making
it-
sure
beans
you
don't.
and I were on the same wavelength.
So it would have to come out of the fund that we must mysteriously have that was funding Pond 83 to do the work up there. I have no idea, and it would be nice to know what the name of that fund is, what the number of that fund is, and how much catch money, seed money do we have in there to distribute to these little types of projects that just seem to pop up one after another.
I heard Lennar wanted to make a donation.
Silence tells all. But I don't know, Bill, where the money's coming from, but
There is
we've got to get
we
it
do have a
fixed.
line item
Maybe
for-
Steve or, was talk like $200,000 that was in account?
In the last meeting, we had a budget amendment put in front of the board that included about $100,000 of additional money for this type of items. Unfortunately, the amendment you have in front of you now, we took that off.
Wait, but wasn't there a line item previous that?
In previous years, there was.
No, I thought this year I had seeing an amount, because we talked about why do we have that in there when we have SRF funding for this, and the conversations around, it's in there because.
Some of that was for general repair.
For erosion, yeah.
Well, yeah, well-
that type
Not
of thing.
for. doing
Well, I
maintenance.
had an argument with a staff member. Erosion and lake bank restoration is what we're doing it for. It's because of erosion. They're interchangeable. But the point was is that 50,000 or whatever the number was up at 83, where's that money coming from?
That was
Pond
part of-
83.
Yeah, again, that was gonna have to come from the general fund reserves, and that was a part of the budget amendment that we had briefly talked about at the last meeting.
My question is there any more left in that from which that came from?
Well, that's part of what we're reviewing, that's why we've kind of pulled it off of the amendment, because, again, it's a matter of priorities. As when we talked about it last time, we were talking about the building, how we're gonna fund the building, and then where we're gonna use a loan.
Well, my thought on all this was, one, the shocker of the 83 the last time, that we had a $53,000 deal and it never saw a bid on any of this stuff. And I've heard nothing but 10 years. I thought the magic number was $10,000, you gotta bid this work. I didn't see any bids. I don't know, that number just showed up, that we had an agreement with this company out of nowhere for $50-some thousand. How'd that happen?
Tony, that's not the
I
kind
don't
of
get
thing
it.
we have to bid out, is it?
No, I think there might be, the authorization to expend money is under 10,000.
We don't have to
If
bid,
it's-
we don't have to bid lake restoration work?
If it's under, if it's a maintenance project under what, 195, I have to check the statute. I think that's-
So we can get away with that then. So this work
Yeah,
then
it's
at 106.
135, 190, I have to double check.
So
195.
106 would fall in that same category then. The only thing we have to do is find a source of the money.
Well, let me ask you a question. And we can, is the rock replacement and the littorals, are they mutually exclusive? Can you do them at different times?
If you're gonna go in and tear up that place, you might as well do it once.
I mean, they're different, yes, it's different work. You have
Yeah,
a
it's different.
different vendor does rock than does
Yeah.
planting of littorals, absolutely. But I agree with Ed in that if you're gonna be touching it, the
You
best
gotta do it
time, the
once.
best, yeah.
I mean,
Because the guy that's going to do the work of placing the stone is going to prep the surface, because the soil's been moved. They're
Right.
gonna bring that back, and they'll even have to bring it back on the golf course side. So that guy can prep everything and get his rock done. The other littoral company can come in and then plant after we've got it all
well,
prepped.
this is gonna be real simple. If Stephen, if there's not existing money that this can pull from, this is gonna have to be a 2018.
It's gonna have to be a what, please?
It'll have to be a 2018. We'll just have to push this. I mean, I hate to do it, but
I'll let you go tell the people around
That's fine.
106.
I-
It's, I think we just gotta figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah, I just don't know if we can.
And for clarification purposes, the threshold is 195,
Yeah,
195,000.
Yep.
When it's declared as
Maintenance
What's,
services, that's
sorry,
correct.
what's 195,000?
Contracts for
Bid.
maintenance services under
Oh,
195, do
okay.
not have to be competitively solicited.
Okay, okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Business manager.
April White, your business manager, for the record. I have a couple of quick updates. The minutes are being added to the website. PPAC has inquired as to other documents that they may be able to put out there. And Mr. Mazie said that he was going to get back to me as far as requesting anything be put out there, and I will keep you updated on that. Also, we have got set up on a website, a provider called Simplifile. So now it will help us with once we accept assets or notice of commencements, we will be able to electronically file with the clerk, so we can get, it's pretty slick and instantaneous. Won't have to run downtown, won't have to rely on the attorney to file those deeds and things of that nature. And also, we have received an executed contract for the Girl Scout building. So the $350 has been accepted. There was some counteroffer revisions. We worked through that, and we do have an executed document that I will scan into the Realtor in the morning. So we're moving forward with that, and that will, I believe, put us on the clock.
Yeah, well, and you have the, and it's on the clock, and then the check needs to be immediately provided.
Okay.
I think it's 3 business days, I think was And the effective date, may want to double check, we're on the clock for the inspection period now. So 60 days has started for the inspection period.
Okay.
What was the execution date?
Today.
Today.
Mhm.
What is that?
16.
Easy question.
On Lake 128, the repairs have been completed. They went in and reestablished the fill, relayed the Armor Max, and put down some riprap. We have had one neighbor complain about the appearance. He's crossed the pond on 128, and because now we have some inconsistency with the bank. However, the washout has been repaired. Public safety event, the public safety portion of our event Saturday was, unfortunately not well attended. We were competing with the Taste of Gateway, and so I believe that they probably had a much better turnout that time of day than we had at the public safety event. The movie, however, did turn out fairly well. And I think everybody had a nice time. It went off, nobody got hurt. The staff popped 24 pounds of popcorn. We gave all that away, and the majority of the sodas. So almost everything that we had purchased was given away, and everyone had a really good time. The roadway landscape master plan, the invitation was sent out. We've received interest from a few people so far. We'll check back in another week or so, I believe. We'll need to establish a meeting place and a time for that, and the consultant has received all the information he needs to complete phase 1. So at some point, we'll probably have another administrative meeting, and then at some point, there'll probably be a presentation to the board as far as where we're at, and so he can actually show you some things that we've mapped out. Also, as a product from the public safety event and the movie, staff is addressing the waste receptacles at the sports complex because clearly what we have over there is not working. When the helicopter landed and flew back up, clearly you could tell that there was a lot of debris and trash on the fields. Small debris that's just not getting picked up on a regular basis. So we're addressing that.
Hey, and one thing, April, if you can just check, so let me preface this by saying I'm not 100% sure, but I know that that I purchased, I don't know, almost 10 blue trash cans for the soccer park 2 years ago that they use, and they were some of them were labeled Gateway Gives Foundation, some of them were not, that were at the soccer park that they've used for recycling. The numbers have dwindled over there, and I have noticed that Mainscape on a couple occasions have got blue receptacles in the back of their golf carts. You can get those blue receptacles at Home Depot. So can we just double check to make sure that they're providing their own trash cans and not just grabbing trash cans from the soccer complex? Like I said, I'm not sure if they are or not, but I did
I don't think they
it.
go off the campus of the sports complex, but
Yeah,
Mainscape
I've seen
out and about.
Yeah, I've seen those blue trash can receptacles in the back of a couple golf courts off the main complex. It could be their own. Let's just double check, because that's part of our problem, is there's just not enough receptacles over there for all of the trash that happens, especially on the in-season, on the weekends.
Yeah, and I know one of the problem is I believe there's a stash of them somewhere that do not have lids, so we're purchasing some lids for them so we can reestablish the blue cans with the lids.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the problem, but I will check into that.
Okay.
And that's all I had.
Margaret.
Any questions?
Kathy.
Go ahead, Kathy.
The deposit, is deposit going to be returned? Is it a refundable deposit? That was our discussion.
Yes, the way the contract is set up is that if we decide to terminate for convenience, the deposit gets returned. If the title workers, there are defects and they're unwilling to, or they can't make it marketable, the deposit gets returned. If the appraisal doesn't work out to equal to or greater than the purchase price, you can get the deposit back, all those various scenarios.
Go ahead.
The chairman was very adamant about making sure that was clear.
And if...
Is that a fair statement, Mrs.
It's
Feinberg?
true.
Thank
That
you.
is true.
With the board's permission, I'd like to attend that meeting with the the landscaper and stuff.
Okay.
Okay, is that,
That's fine.
okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Two items, April, unless something changed in the last 3 days, I went out and looked at 128, and it did not look like it was done. They put that stone down, and it looked like it just kind of petered out on the north end of 128. It was very sloppy, very sloppy. They put enough stone on that south end of that pond, float a battleship. I've never seen anything like it. It must have been a foot thick. I guess that takes place of Arma Max, but it was something else. The other one is that I understand all the work on the landscaping, but is somebody looking at our overall common area irrigation system? Because it is a joke.
Yes, sir. It is going to be part of
Part of
the
it.
comprehensive plan. Yes.
Because it is badly needing to be repaired.
Yes. Mainscape will be attending our next meeting.
Great. That's all I had.
Then I'll go back to the, can I go back to
Yes.
the irrigation? Because going out with L, I have a lot of notes about the irrigation.
Okay.
Do you want them now or later?
Is it something we really have to go into, or is it something that you work with the master plan people and L on?
Yeah, why don't we provide them at that meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the irrigation system
Yeah.
is
Yeah, it's-
included in the cost of whatever the proposals are, because we've got control system that is basically non-existent.
Yes, that's true. Okay.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay, I'm gonna move to district manager.
Chris Shoemaker, District Manager, and just for your information are the construction plans for the Summit Church, and there's a location map and a layout of that facility, and they've been submitted to us for review. And 377 seats, and minor impacts to our operation. And I don't know if you have any questions, but we'll start as these projects come in, bringing it to you for your information.
Or Comcast.
Anybody
There you
have
go.
any questions for Chris on this project?
No.
Seeing none, thank you. Anything else, Chris?
Nothing outstanding. We are, last board meeting, you approved the expenditure to rebuild the Daniels lift station, and we'll be getting underway in about a week with that project. And it'll take the contractor about a week to rebuild that station. And under the utilities manager spot, I'll make a few comments on that, but we did make a hire for that spot and promoted from within and hired Kenny Hall to do it, and wanted to have some continuity. And also, he has a strong operation and maintenance and construction background. And so we'll be advertising to replace his position. We're still looking for public works managers. I had one interview today that was very positive, but we'll be interviewing some other candidates, and I would say in the next 3 weeks, we'll bring something forward on the hire on that end.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Chris, I applaud you for that, making that move. I think it does a couple things. One, it puts someone in that position that understands the district, and someone that you can continue to mentor and coach. And two, I think that says something to our staff, that if you are committed, you do a good job, there is upward mobility for us here. And I think that's a model that we should be drafting and moving forward.
I certainly agree with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And besides staying busy with the ponds project and bringing all that together, where you have contractors, construction supervision, and engineers, and I feel like the ringmaster sometimes, everything's moving forward.
Thank you, Chris. Excellent job. Kathy?
Just a question, don't we have to make a motion to approve the construction plans?
No.
I think this is just for
This
information.
is information.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
And we'll come back later for the actual acceptance of the project.
Okay, I'm gonna move the consent agenda. Does anybody have consent agenda items they wanna pull? Got the minutes and the spreadsheet.
A and B.
You wanna pull A and B?
A and B.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Kathy. A.
All right. Okay, Line 333, agenda item page 20, okay. Just a question, did Mr. Tinkle really say only 4 lakes when I believe there's 5 lakes? That was a
Oh,
question?
went too far.
It is 5.
Yeah, was my question.
I don't know where the 4 came from. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
5.
Okay.
So
Good
that's a
catch.
correction. All right.
You wanna go-
Anything else on the minutes?
Nothing else on the minutes.
Okay.
Consent agenda, you wanna go directly to that one?
Well, let's
Well,
go
the-
ahead, and approve the minutes because there's a correction.
All right.
Going to make the motion to approve the
Approve it
minutes.
with the correction.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now,
B,
yep,
agenda page 28. I think it's page 28, 25, I'm sorry. All right, management company, that date, the expiration date has changed to 3/31/2018. We did that last,
Yeah, so did the
meeting.
price.
And that's my next thing, the annual amount should be changed.
yeah, there was actually, I think, a couple items on here that needed to be updated.
Yeah, I've got a bunch circled, but I won't go through them all then.
For clarification, the management company, I do not believe we have an executed agreement yet.
Yeah, the third or the
We're
fourth.
still working on the Fourth Amendment.
Or the third, I don't think we have the
Yeah, we don't
third.
have a third or a fourth yet. So that has not changed yet.
So that's not changed.
No, so 3/31/17 is correct.
Okay, because I thought I know that it was questioned.
It will be coming back. We discussed the date or,
Yeah.
It's not in our ballpark anymore.
yeah.
I think we've narrowed the issues down on the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, it's on the agenda for today.
Yeah, based on the communications we had recently.
And then I didn't hear your other clarification that you wanted to make on that.
Okay, the amount, okay. However, in the minutes, it says, maybe this is 7 Trent, I thought it was the current agreement is set to expire on 3/31/17, and I thought we were extending it another year. Now, that could be 7 Trent. So I go to 7.
We are working on it.
That'll be part of the finalized agreement, but the agreement hasn't been finalized yet. That'll come
Okay,
to us.
that's what I was
Today.
looking at.
Today, right?
Check your email.
Excuse me?
We have a contract on the agenda today, don't we?
I believe so.
Okay.
So what else did you have?
I just
Kathy?
have all the expiration dates, what are we doing with them? Okay, NTEC is expiring on May 12th, 2017. Are we going to bid? Because it is March already.
April, are we bidding out or looking at
Yeah, NTEC.
options for Intech when their contract expires?
I am not aware of any discussion to go out to bid, but it hasn't been discussed.
That's on page 26.
Based on
It's
previous conversations around their support model and what their capabilities, I think it would be worth at least putting some feelers out.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
I'll go through all mine.
The motion to approve consent agenda item 4B.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Did you have something else you wanted to say? Dan?
No, it's okay. I'll get with April later on.
Okay. All right, 5A, discussion of resolution.
Already did it.
We
Wait,
didn't-
Mr. Peters.
that was-
Oh, okay.
Which one is it?
That was 2017-11, this is 2017-10, are they the?
That's the one we're not ready for yet. That was, put there as a placeholder. That's the one, hopefully we'll have all the documents for the continued
The
meeting.
continued
meeting,
meeting.
yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
So we'll table this.
It'll be part of the continuation, yes, sir.
Okay, 5B, final lift for Vicenza Court and Pelican Preserve Boulevard.
For the record, Danny Nelson, Tetra Tech. So you have in front of you the agenda item, what the cost is. Within the engineer's report, the Fourth Amendment engineer's report, we had estimated $73,250. This was the item where we went to Lee County, tried using their contracts. Their contracts were expired. Asked the board for direction, recommending that we utilize those contracts, asked if the vendors would hold their pricing, and PMI actually would. In fact, I think they were lower. The reason why this is higher is that there was some curb gutter work that was discovered needed to be repaired, so it pushed the item above. The only difference that we're asking here is under the background on that first sheet is recommending to utilize that the $3,039 not come from either the Pelican Preserve 002 fund or the bond proceeds, but to use that simply from the general fund. It's that way it won't impact the bond proceeds or anything. So that's what we're simply asking to make that change. Other than that,
You're asking for that $3,000 to come out of the 001 fund?
out of the general fund, that was, sorry, the 002, the Pelican Preserves General Fund, so the 002.
Okay.
Pelican Preserve General.
Yeah.
That's what I just wanted to make sure.
No.
Wanted to clarify that.
And so with that, PMI's, discussed it, we're ready to execute the contract, so we're just looking for a recommendation of that, and then we bring the contract for the chairperson to sign.
Feedback is in agreement with that.
Would you come to the podium, Bob, please? If I may.
Should have held my mouth shut. Bob Gepper again from Pelican Preserve. PPAC is in agreement with us.
To charge it to 02 instead of to the?
We could take it either way. We thought it was going to be the bond fund, but we're okay. Either way, we're all right. We got money in the bond fund.
Yes, I know.
I know.
It sounds
But it changed here.
counterintuitive to not take it from the bond fund, Bob.
That's what came up today. We were okay with it coming from the bond fund. We want the money approved. Danny says it should come from 02. It really doesn't make a lot of difference to us, as long as we get
The
it.
3,000, right?
Yes. It's $3,000.
And if I can clarify, the 3,000 is because David Cole has affirmed that WCI Lennar will be requisitioning the $53,000 and change for the Track D model home final lift. Correct, David?
Yes. Well, from Track E, but it's not the final lift. It's just other work that was done
Okay.
initially.
And if I can clarify that, within the engineer's report, which you actually have as part of this, I think I don't know which page, it's on page 42 of the agenda. The $53,992 is the roadway work that is in Track D. That's work that WCI did when they built those last homes on the T portion of Vicenza, but that will be requisitioned. So we're talking about $3,000. If it comes from the bonds, it's not the end of the world, but our recommendation is that it come from the 002 fund.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Bill, did you?
I'll vote in favor of it, but I feel that it is the incorrect way to do it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 5C, budget amendment.
Can we take a 5-minute break before we start?
I've been requested to have a 5-minute break, so let's go ahead and do that.
I might not be here.
It's just some of the documents that are more formal, so I can redline.
I have previous, I have two stuff.
You get done quick.
No, I can
So I'll try to make it before, but I can't
Oh, yeah.
guarantee.
Well, I
Send
can-
one from another project.
Oh, I did.
Fill in the right
Well,
name.
yeah, Iberia and Florida Communities.
I
I
understand.
got a meeting first morning. I got a meeting Friday morning. My time is.
That's torturing me, Steve.
I know.
Well, if you're meeting.
I opened them up, I went,
Yes.
You have something that conflicts at 4 o'clock on Wednesday?
I do the art letters. If I don't finish them, I stay till I finish.
Okay.
Okay?
Gotcha.
So hopefully I'll be finished. I just got another, somebody cut down a tree.
I haven't worked with this guy. I'm trying to think of.
But it's not district work, right?
Yes, of course. We've got
This doesn't mean it's advertisement credit.
I don't understand.
You could come for the 4 o'clock meeting
And then go back, yeah. Because then I can, I'm trying,
because on Wednesdays they're open.
That's true, I forgot.
All the night has it down.
Just a thought.
You know,
Just a
because,
thought.
yeah, I sent you my.
Would have been the benefit of going with all the community.
This week.
Yes.
But they,
So I don't see that anybody.
Did you bring your,
I know, but you know what, I finally got them convinced as to how to do it. You'll see what they did. With, $500,000, 610.